Welcome into a Week 10 edition of Buffalo Bills Weekly, where we take you behind the scenes at One Bills Drive. He's Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. In this week's episode, we'll assess the Bills at the halfway point, tell you an area where Buffalo can find success against the Colts, and retired NBA star and Colts fan Gordon Hayward helps us get ready for Sunday. This is the second time the Bills are 7-2 to start the season in the Josh Allen era. In the last 6 times the Bills have done this in their history, they've made it to the AFC Championship game. Chris, are we smelling a deep playoff run here?
It's certainly something to get excited about, but I will ask people to just pump the brakes a little bit because in 4 of the Bills' next 5 games, they are playing playoff teams from last year, including the 2 teams that met up in the NFC title game. We got a long way to go.
Cool your jets, everybody, including myself. Buffalo's 9 games down. They have 8 games to go in the regular season. On offense, this team has proven that they can win in multiple ways. The Bills can rely on their quarterback and Josh Allen and the wide receivers. They can put the game on the running backs, and they can even trot the kicker out there for a game-winning field goal. What's been even more impressive is Allen's ability to be patient and just take what the defense gives him.
Right.
This is a quarterback who in seasons past has led the NFL in turnovers. This season, he's being really selective and really has a good eye for what's out there and what is the right answer. How has this offense been able to morph week to week depending on what defenses are putting out there?
Yeah, I think they've adopted a philosophical shift in the passing game. They know that a lot of defenses are going to play cover 2 shell over the top to eliminate Josh's big arm and generating big plays in the passing game. And he and Joe Brady have kind of worked together to tap into the run after catch ability of this new collection of receivers. And for the most part, it's worked. They're in the top 10 in yards after catch as a team. And look, they have a running game that's good enough to lean on as a catalyst offensively when they need it, similar to how they played down the stretch last season.
Buffalo's defense is showcasing their physicality this season with the way they're taking away the football, doing it at a high rate. 15 takeaways so far this season, top 5 in the NFL. They're doing it when the offense needs them to do it most. When the offense needs points, the defense is there to take the football away and give it right back to them. Even more impressive, they're doing it without starters. What do you want to see out of this group in the final 8 games, Chris?
This is going to sound a little boring, but I'm taking a page out of Coach McDermott's book, More Sound Fundamental Tackling. It was very strong at the very start of the season, and this happens through the course of a season, and we've seen this with the Bills before. There'll be a game or 2 where their tackling gets a little loose, and an opponent has the ball for long stretches, they find themselves in a tight game. That was the situation last week against Miami. They have to get back to better fundamental tackling, and I'd like to see a little bit of an uptick in their pass rush. It's there at times. I don't think it's been there enough. They need to affect the passer a lot more on more downs through the course of games. It's been a little bit of fits and starts here the last couple of weeks. It's got to get turned up, especially with Von back.
The pass rush just hasn't been consistent enough for what this defense needs to operate at the highest level. What could even affect this more is more injuries.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we found out about defensive end DeJuan Smoot. He's dealing with a right wrist injury that will require surgery. He's also going to be on IR. How do these injuries affect this group as a whole?
Yeah, I think there's a decision that has to be made here because every time you remove players from a given position in numbers, it puts more stress on the players that are left behind and healthy and filling those roles because now they've got to do more. Decision has to be made at the personnel level. Do we need to add to the roster because we're so down in numbers at the end position, or do we have enough depth on the practice squad with players like Kingsley Jonathan?
And Smoot isn't the only one with a wrist injury. There's about 4 players on this team with a wrist injury right now. Have you ever seen this happen before?
It's an epidemic. It's crazy, but sometimes you get a rash of injuries that are similar in nature, but I don't know if I've ever seen this. I think it's up to 5 now. You got Amari Cooper, you've got Keon Coleman on offense, and you got players on. Yeah, it's been nonstop. It's nuts.
When we return, we're going to tell you an area that Buffalo's offense has to attack when facing the Colts on Sunday, and you'll hear some of the best press conferences from this week. Don't go anywhere.
When we return, Maddy Glab interviews NBA star Gordon Hayward in this week's episode of You Heard. And then later, catch the press conference highlights in Soundbite Roundup.
What's up, everyone? This is NBA star Gordon Hayward, and you just heard.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of You Heard, where athletes, influencers, and celebrities share their NFL fandom. In today's episode, we have retired NBA star forward Gordon Hayward joining us to help us get ready for Sunday's game against the Colts. Gordon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us. Appreciate the time. You are an Indy guy, born and raised there. When did you start to follow the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. As you said, I was a Colts fan for as long as I can remember. My parents were Colts fans. I remember going to the old, I believe it was the RCA Dome growing up, which was nice that it was a dome because it gets pretty cold there in Indy. And so we were spoiled with being inside the dome. But then as I grew up, the Colts were really, really good. And so I was lucky that obviously Peyton, I think, was drafted like in 1998. I was born in 1990. So, I mean, 8 years old, you're about as big of a super fan of sports as you can be then. And so I followed them, through high school, where I think they won it in 2007. And
Super
so
Bowl
that was
41.
That's right. And so that was obviously really fun. There was so many Super Bowl parties and stuff to go to. And so I was pretty blessed to grow up a Colts fan.
You are from Indiana, such a basketball state. You play at Butler collegiately. Was it always in you? You have the size, 6'7" forward. Was it always in you to feel like, okay, this is going to be my path?
Absolutely not. My parents are both 5'10", so 5'10" is tall for a girl, but there's nobody else in my family that's over 6 feet tall.
No way. Both your parents are 5'10"
Oh yeah,
and you're 6'7".
that's right. And
That's crazy.
so it was, like I said, no one else in my family is over 6 feet tall. So it was a dream of mine to play in the NBA, but I never thought it would be a reality. Coach Stevens at Butler was actually the first one that told me, like, hey, I think you might be able to play in the NBA one day. So, growing up, I actually almost quit basketball to play tennis. I played tennis in high school. I was probably better at tennis than basketball. I thought I wanted to play a college sport. Maybe tennis is the route that I should go. Luckily, I kind of grew gradually over my 4 years in high school, and that obviously ended up being, what kind of saved me, because you do have to be a little bit tall in basketball generally. And but no, I never thought it really, like, I wasn't recruited very highly. I wasn't on any of the rankings. I wasn't like a 5-star or 4-star recruit or anything. So, I mean, it just kind of worked out for me, the whole basketball route.
Wow, so cool. Well, let's go back to the team that's playing on Sunday against the Bills. It's the Indianapolis Colts. Rough patch of the season for the Colts. They're 4-5 right now. They've made a quarterback change to Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson, the guy who they drafted in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft, is now on the bench. Who knows if he's going to be on the bench for the rest of the season? Who knows what their plan is going forward? Do you have a take on this whole scenario?
I mean, it's really tough to say. I from a basketball standpoint, it's weird because you do have like a starting spot, but you can be almost just as impactful off the bench in basketball. I can't imagine a game where it's just like you're not starting and like you're not going to play at all. Like, that would be really tough. And then to switch the person that is playing like halfway through, I think mentally it's tough on both of those guys. It's also tough on the team. Like, you got the whole team dynamic of guys having rhythms with certain guys, and it's a lot. So I rooting for whoever is going to be starting. I know Anthony Richardson was banged up a little bit, had some injuries throughout the early part of this season. So yeah, it has been tough. I mean, I don't know if we scored an offensive touchdown last night. So we got to try to figure something out here, especially playing against the Bills.
You guys hung around for a while against the Minnesota Vikings. It wasn't their best game either, so it wasn't like it was a huge blowout by the Vikings at all. Do you have any favorite players on this version of the Indianapolis Colts right now?
Well, I think my favorite player's got to be Jonathan Taylor. I mean, if we get him going, generally we're doing pretty well. We've been in almost every game this season. Like, it's been close, relatively close, and it's just like a little bit here or there. And instead of 4-5, maybe you're 6-3 or something like that, which is, I mean, that's every sport. It usually comes down to a couple of possessions here or there, and it's can make or break. But yeah, if we can get Jonathan Taylor going, I think we'd be pretty good.
We'll be right back on You Heard. Stay tuned. The Bills have a quarterback in Josh Allen who is well known amongst the NFL. He's one of the best. We feel very lucky that he's the one throwing the rock for us. What do you know about Josh Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's a monster. He is a beast. It seems like he can do it all, right? I mean, he's got a huge arm. He can throw. He can sit in the pocket. He also can use his legs. He's tough to bring down. It's hard for me to see, like, when I watch the game, you see guys, and it's hard to tell how big they are. But I know that Josh Allen is like a big quarterback, right? Like he is. So he's hard to stop. And so I think you just got to try to make it difficult on him, not let him get going.
One of those things that you have going on is your own production company called Whiskey Creek Productions. You released your first feature film, Notice to Quit, recently. How did you get involved in that world?
Yeah, so actually I had a major injury when I was in Boston, and I had the Players Tribune over there. They actually did a comeback documentary, and the guy who directed and did the whole documentary became a close friend of mine. We obviously spent a lot of time together, Simon Hacker, and we decided to form a production company. He said, he came to me and was like, let's make this movie. I read the script, I connected with it and felt like it was a really good script. And we decided to go ahead and make this movie. And Simon did an unreal job. It stars Michael Zegan from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, who I know a lot of people have seen. And it was in 304 screens across the country, which was incredible for such a small independent, production company. We actually ended up distributing it ourselves as well. And couldn't be more proud of what Simon was able to do. Michael, the rest of the cast. I mean, it was really cool to see. And now that I'm retired, I'm able to kind of get more involved in that. I was able to go to Skywalker Sound, which is out there near San Francisco, and help with some of the sound editing and kind of watch and see what they do there. And it's a whole world that I don't really know much about, but I'm able to learn and really kind of dive into.
Do you guys have anything new cooking on the forefront with that production company?
We do. We already have a couple more scripts, like in-house scripts, that we're looking to then kind of keep the momentum going and make more movies. We also, because of the movie and everything, we have all these other people that are sending scripts, and so we're trying to kind of sort through all those, but we will for sure be having more stuff in the future.
I have to ask you this. What has it been like, and how unique is it to have LeBron playing with his son in the NBA?
It's incredible. I mean, like I said earlier, for him to still be playing at his age and not just playing, there's been other players that have done it for that long, but then by that year, they're really just like on the end of the bench. They're not, or they're spot shooters or whatever. They're not really doing that much. LeBron is still starting, playing most of the game, having a huge impact on winning and losing. And so for him to have his son there too, it's really special. And that's an incredible moment for him and his family, but also just for the game. That's the first time it's ever happened, right? So I think it certainly is really cool.
One memory that we Bills fans and just people in the NFL have is going down to Indianapolis for the NFL scouting combine every year. And when we're there, everybody has to get their hands on a shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's. Do you have a take on the shrimp cocktail there?
Overrated. Big time overrated. Everyone always talks about that. I am not a St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail fan, so I think it's overrated. It's a little spicy for me. Do
you want to put something else on the map since you're calling that overrated?
I mean, I'm going to get probably a lot of heat for saying this, but my favorite pizza in Indianapolis is Donato's. I'm a big Donato's fan. My kids love Donato's. So anytime we go back, we got to get Donato's pizza. So that's what I would say.
I love it. Shout out to Donato's Pizza. Gordon, Thank you so much for taking the time to get us ready for this Sunday game against the Colts. Talk a little NBA too. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Maddy.
When we return, catch the highlights from this week's press conferences in Soundbite Roundup.
Joe always talks about the greatest reward for doing is the opportunity to do more. So that's all it really is just making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable. And if he's going to go out there and be a friendly play caller like that we got to make it work and make him look good at the same time.
You know, I think what it comes down to is everybody doing their job, staying in their gaps and getting off blocks and making plays at the end of the day. We're going to spend a lot of time this week talking about how we need to fit the run, you know, how we need to defend the run better, and rightfully so. You know, we didn't do a good enough job last week, but you know, you go back 2 weeks and we did a really good job. So I think just the consistency of what we're doing, everybody understanding the job, and then you know, at the end of the day, doing your job and making plays when it's your time to make a play.
You know, by the time Sunday comes, you know where you have to be, where your mind has to be, and really prepping through the whole week when we're going through walkthroughs, going through practices, going through different looks, watching film together, just knowing what our mind is aware of, seeing different looks, have to be aware of, and stuff like that.
But I think it's a culmination of a few things, whether it's, you know, early on, just, again, being mentally prepared, ready to go, but also, like, wearing on teams, you know, committing to the run game and, you know, getting the screen game involved and taking our shots, but when they're not there, checking it down and making sure that we're holding on to the ball and ending every possession in a kick, albeit a punt, a field goal, or a touchdown, or a point after touchdown. Just, again, I think the more plays that you can run, the more opportunities that you have. And, again, our O-line's done such a good job of creating lanes in the run game. Our running backs are running it hard, and that puts the defense in a tough situation throughout an entire game.
Well, we all see when we're on the same page what we do. I mean, we get 3 and outs, we get turnovers, we get stops, we get the offense back the ball. And most of the time this year when we've given up stuff is because we all haven't been on the same page.
This is a building that, you know, has been molded into kind of like a serious brotherhood, and it's fun. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And to come from, you know, step one to step current, I think it's dope. I really do. And I say this with the most and respect that I tip my hat to McDermott, because we are a product of him, and him as a man allowing us to be the men that we are. It's one of the best things in the world, and he allows us to be the version of the men that we are, and it's dope.
Welcome back into Buffalo Bills Weekly. The Bills are taking on the Colts in Week 10. This Indianapolis defense has been keeping the Colts in games in terms of limiting opposing offenses in points per game averages, but they're allowing a lot of yards on the ground and through the air. When you look at through the air, they're allowing 233 passing yards per game. Their secondary is struggling to provide tight coverage at times. That means Buffalo's offense can take advantage of that weakness through the air, leaning on Josh Allen and the wide receivers. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I think the middle of the field is going to be open for the Bills. Kenny Moore, their slot corner, has been all-pro level for a long time, but I was surprised to see that opposing quarterbacks have a passer rating of 104.5 against him. He's also given up 3 touchdowns this season. That is uncharacteristic, so Khalil Shakir could eat in the middle of the field, and their 2 safeties are not very good either. They've given up a lot of plays in the middle of the field, have had trouble covering the deep halves, so I think this could be a big game for Shakir and Dalton Kincaid.
Flipping it to Buffalo's defense, Colts running back Jonathan Taylor can be a problem. He's versatile, slippery. Taylor's not afraid to run right at a defense. He's averaging around 85 rushing yards per game. Last game, Buffalo's defense struggled to stop the run against Miami, getting guys on the ground and clogging up holes. What does Buffalo's defense need to do against this Colts offense that can lean on Taylor when they need to?
Yeah, I think they just have to get back to sound fundamental tackling. To quote Coach McDermott again, he said, look, it's not enough to just be in your gap. You have to break down and execute sound fundamental tackle technique. They have to get back to the basics in practice to be ready for Taylor. The other thing is they got to set the edge better, because if you let Taylor get the corner, he is down the sideline and gone. You're not catching him. He's got 4.39 speed. The The careful thing that has to be done by the defense this week, though, is yes, you have to have a lot of respect for Taylor, but be mindful of the play action passing game with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
Yeah, Joe Flacco taking over at quarterback. It could be a little bit of a different offense that we're seeing from Indianapolis on Sunday. We all remember the last time the Bills and the Colts played in 2021.
Do we have to?
Jonathan Taylor had 5 total touchdowns, 185 rushing yards. We're all hoping that doesn't happen.
We don't want a repeat performance, so let's plan on that, and guys, tackle good, please.
You can catch the game this Sunday, November 10th on CBS and Paramount+. Chris will be on the radio with the call, so to hear him and Bills legend Eric Wood, you can listen to WGR 550. We'll see what happens in Week 10. We want to thank you for tuning into Buffalo Bills Weekly. For Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. We'll see you next time.